Is Maine here, the governor of Maine?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
So President Trump, he's not messing around in his second term here. I think it's pretty clear about that. And this is not the first time that he's called someone out to their face, something that isn't very common in politics. Now, he did the exact same thing to LA Mayor Karen Bass as she tried to give excuses for not being prepared for the California wildfires. Now, speaking of the mayor, a lot of people are blaming Karen Bass for being ill prepared. In fact, Karen was overseas when all these fires started. Now she's reasoned out that she wasn't aware of the warnings. Do you guys believe her? Even though this was public knowledge well before her trip to Ghana, she was also criticized by her own fire chief as they felt abandoned by the mayor, a fire chief that Bass has now recently laid off. What a coincidence.
Acting in the best interest of Los Angeles public safety and for the operations of the Los Angeles Fire Department, I just met with Chief Crowley and removed her as fire chief. I have appointed a 41-year veteran of the fire department, former Chief Deputy Ronald Villanueva, as interim fire chief. He is respected and ready to hit the ground running. So let me be clear. Our firefighters acted heroically during the Palisades fire, and they act heroically every single day. That is without question. Bringing new leadership to the fire department is what they and the people of Los Angeles deserve.
To give you a clear view of her decision, she removed the person who was in charge for someone who's retired, which raises a few questions because some people believe that it might have been better to keep Crowley on, or at least hire someone who's been with the team currently, which leads many people to believe that she fired Crowley purely out of spite.
Is this something that typically happens, bringing someone out of retirement when you're, moving someone out like that? Or why not pick someone who's already within the fire department?
Well, it could be that this person, Ronnie Villanueva, the deputy chief, Ronnie Villanueva, was certainly the best person for the job. But the removal of a sitting fire chief in the city of Los Angeles is very uncommon. I'm trying to think in my mind the last time something like that happened, especially after a major event like the Palisades wildfires. Now, we know and we have seen that there has been some conflict between the mayor and the fire chief during some news conferences and some issues regarding the firefighters and how they responded to the Palisades fire. But this is a major step. I mean, removing a fire chief in the middle of a term is something that is very serious. And certainly the leadership of the LA City Fire Department is going to be shaken up by this.
Now, we cannot forget about the fact that the mayor chose to leave the country after warnings popped up. Warnings that she says that she wasn't aware of. And yet she removed the fire chief who was actually there. And her reason is that the fire chief sent firefighters home the day of the fire, and that she refused to do an after-action review of the Palisades fire. Mayor Karen Bass also threw Crowley under the bus because she blamed her for not letting her know about the wildfire warnings. Now, I wish I was making this stuff up, guys, but this is the truth. So here's my question for you. Do you think that Mayor Karen Bass was acting in the best interest of her constituents, or did she just let her city burn down to the ground? Now, I want to redirect you guys to a recent live stream that I did. I covered some very bad news for the Democratic Party as donors are now pulling back on their donations. And even worse, some have decided to use that money to support President Donald Trump. Make sure you guys check that video out. As always, appreciate your time. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you guys next time. A former Georgia House representative is under investigation for billions of dollars that seem to have just gone missing. President Trump gets into a heated confrontation with a governor regarding men and women's sports, and LA Mayor Karen Bass is under more scrutiny as she removed her own fire chief from her job. Now, we got some really interesting updates today, starting with Stacey Abrams. But real quick, guys, if you guys appreciate the daily updates, please take a second, hit the like button for the video, and thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Now, I want to give you a little bit of context context here, guys. Many Republicans support the Doge movement, including those $5,000 stimulus checks, but they support cutting off the spending of taxpayer money on waste. Now, on the other hand, Democrats argue that these cuts could endanger the American people, citing that some of the programs are just essential and should not be put on the chopping block. They've said the same thing for federal workers who run programs that they say support communities across the country. And while the argument does make a little bit of sense, it seems as if something is awry here. Maybe there's something more to this, as if they're trying to hide something. Which now brings us to this story.
EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin says he's on a mission to track down billions of dollars that were either misspent or parked in accounts meant to boost liberal activists. The latest focus is on a nonprofit with ties to former Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. The Free Beacon says the EPA is looking to where some $2 billion ended up. The Beacon writing out in their story that they have been looking into whether or not this money through the Powered Forward communities received the Green Energy Grant, despite the fact that it was founded months earlier in late 2023 and never managed anywhere near the grant's dollar figure. Now, Abrams just this week was pretty vocal on X, saying she's no fan of these Doge cuts.
Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below. Now, of course, she's not a fan of those Doge cuts because this is exactly what Elon Musk was talking about. You would think that if you receive $2 billion that there would be some kind of accountability, right? But at this point, we don't know where the money went. Now, Senator James Lankford was recently on Fox to talk about this. Check this out.
I just want to ask you something. On that money that went to Stacey Abrams' group and was supposedly misspent, that's what the accusation is. Can Congress claw that money back?
Yeah, that becomes the challenge. You tell me if we can get enough Democrats to be able to join us in the Senate to be able to do that. The president can do that, though, with the oversight that's actually happening and to say, how are we going to actually make sure that this is actually done? The Department of Justice can say if this was fraudulently done, they can actually work to claw it back. It is interesting to me to be able to watch. Early days of the Biden administration, they were creating DEI programs. He was requiring all agencies to find Green New Deal ways to be able to engage, and he was cutting off oil and gas production on all federal lands. Flip the script 4 years later, we're cutting government size and we're opening up American energy. Dramatic difference between side by side in first month.
To be fair, I want you to hear exactly what Abrams planned to do with this money. This is her back in 2022 when she was first talking about this whole project thing.
We know that we have to take action on climate. And unfortunately, I live in a state where the governor has been absolutely silent on his intentions. I intend to push for environmental resilience, and this is a bill that's going to help us do that. But overall, it's going to put money back into the pockets of Georgians, back into the pockets of Americans, and that's the kind of progress we need to continue to make.
We're going to find out soon enough if money actually went back into the pockets of Georgians. But at this point, it's still up in the air as to what they actually did with these billions of dollars. Now, moving on, guys, let's talk about President Trump's tense confrontation with Maine Governor Janet Mills. The context is that Mills refuses to follow the order from the federal government, one that would ban men from participating in women's sports. The logic is that men have a biological advantage, which is not fair for the women who worked hard at their craft. This is something that doesn't make sense to Governor Mills, which led to a back and forth exchange with the president.
2 weeks ago, I signed an executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. Many Democrats are fighting me on that. I hope you continue because you'll never win another race. And it's just crazy. If you look at what happened with the boxing, if you look at what happened with the weightlifting numbers, where a record that hadn't been broken for 19 years got shattered. But, you know, they put up an eighth of an ounce here, an eighth of an ounce there, and it's 218 pounds or whatever, a lot. And hadn't been broken in 19 years. And then a guy walks up who transitioned. He transitioned. And he knocked out that record by about 100 pounds. That would be a record not going to be broken again in a long. So we put a ban on it, and to protect women. I mean, the women. If you watch the Olympics, you had two transitioned people that were fighting in the women's boxing. They have women's boxing category, and if you saw that, it was brutal. What happened to the The Italian woman was a really good boxer. After one punch, she said, no more. I've never been hit. It was a left. It was not even it was just a left jab. She got hit so hard, she said, I can't do it. They forced her to go out. No, go out again. You'll do it. Goes out again, gets hit again. No, that's it. She didn't want to die. And it's crazy, but the NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is the Maine here, the governor of Maine?
Down here,
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens.